surrogate is currently fighting for a baby's life against the biological parents of the baby who are fighting to have the baby aborted. There is now a lawsuit in this case, and I would love to know your thoughts. This is McKenna West, and she is reportedly a nurse from Alaska, and she is a single mother of 2 children. She reportedly signed to become a surrogate with Worldwide Surrogacy Specialist back in 2025, last year, and that was in September, and it was in order to make ends meet. But when she went for the baby's anatomy scan at the 20th week mark of her pregnancy, back in April of this year, the baby, whose name is Gabriel, was diagnosed with a very severe but treatable heart condition called hydroplastic left heart syndrome. Now, the baby's biological parents have not been identified, only by their initials in court papers. But they demanded that McKenna abort the baby, which would be in accordance with the abortion on demand clause of their surrogacy agreement. However, doctors in Alaska reportedly refused to perform the abortion, which is said to be really intensive and a risky procedure that can last 2 days. It's a late-term procedure. So the biological parents then demanded that McKenna travel to Seattle to have an abortion. Well, it was said McKenna had already bonded with the baby, and she was heartbroken at the thought of an abortion. She could not stand the fact that doctors would inject baby Gabriel with a solution that would cause his heart to stop, and then literally rip him apart and dismember him while he's being removed from her uterus. She was especially appalled at this idea because this condition is treatable. According to reports, newborns who are diagnosed with this condition require surgery almost immediately after birth, and that's in order to survive beyond their first week. Babies who get the operation have a 75% chance of making it to age 5, and those who make it to their first birthday have a 90% chance of making it to the age of 18. McKenna has since told news outlets that every life matters, and no woman should be forced to end the life of the baby they're carrying, including her, and that Gabriel should get a chance at life. So McKenna eventually decided she couldn't go through with the abortion, and she offered to take full responsibility for the baby and to relieve the biological parents of any and all financial and custodial duties. However, the biological parents rejected her offer, and they threatened to sue her for $250,000, which would bankrupt her. So McKenna reportedly fled to Texas, hoping to give birth at a hospital that specializes in pediatric cardiac issues. So because of all of this, a difficult legal battle has started and continued, and that's in both Alaska Superior Court and the California 2nd District Court of Appeal. The biological parents are now attempting to make McKenna give birth in their home state of California. Furthermore, they're trying to get parental rights of Gabriel, who is due on September 3rd, so in a month. But McKenna is thinking this is a plot by the biological parents to terminate the baby by refusing to allow doctors to perform the surgery on him, the surgery that would save his life. In turn, McKenna has offered to renounce any parental rights over the baby as long as the biological parents agree to get him surgery, but they have reportedly refused to do so. They have also discussed palliative care for the baby with doctors. According to reports, the biological parents are now saying that McKenna is distorting reality and that she's only after their money, which I totally disagree with. I mean, she offered to have custody and raise this child with no financial support or anything from the parents. So how is she after money? They're the ones wanting to sue her for $250,000.
Did you hear about the surrogate who is being sued by the parents who hired her because they want her to have an abortion and she won't do it? A woman named McKenna West, who lives in Alaska, decided to become a surrogate for a couple in California because she just needed the extra income. And after her IVF treatment, she became pregnant easily. McKenna said that it was a smooth pregnancy until about the 20-week milestone when doctors informed her that the baby had a heart defect. Now, this particular defect is treatable, but it would require multiple surgeries. But after the surgeries, doctors say the baby could live a normal and healthy life. When the parents heard about the heart defect, they decided that they didn't want to continue with the pregnancy because they didn't want to deal with the stress of infant surgeries. So they reached out to McKenna and asked that she get an abortion. Although McKenna had already signed a contract with a clause that states that if the parents requested an abortion in the case of an anomaly, she would agree to have one, McKenna stopped short and said she's not doing it. Instead, McKenna filed for custody of the baby because she says she wants to save the baby's life. The parents are suing her, requesting that she travel to their home state of California to give birth so that they can take over care of the baby once it's born. But McKenna is refusing to do that because she knows if they are not willing to get the baby surgery, the baby will likely die, and she doesn't want that.
And how you gonna be a surrogate mama, get attached to the baby, run, skip states, and decide you gonna keep a baby when these people telling you they don't want the child, and you decide you gonna keep it anyways? You can't do that. I don't know if I'm too deep off in TikTok streets or y'all on the same street as me, but have y'all heard about the surrogate mom who was carrying a child for these people, and they found out that the baby had a heart condition? The baby had a, illness or whatever. They decided that they no longer want the baby, and they wanted her to terminate the pregnancy because I guess they did not want a child with conditions. She decided as a surrogate mom, right, that she was going to keep the baby anyway, skip states, and go full, through with the pregnancy without these people permission. So now they want to sue her for $250,000 because she's keeping the baby. But my thing is, as a surrogate mom, why are you getting attached to somebody else's child that you carrying for them and deciding that you're going to keep the baby anyways after they asked you to terminate the pregnancy? And it's like, this situation is so crazy. Like, you can't do, like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Like, what? And then, like, what you just gonna keep date? Girl, this is crazy. Man, I'm so shocked. Like, have y'all heard about this? Let's talk about this in the comments.
Happy Surrogacy Sunday. If you are new here, my name is Shonda. I am a 2-time gestational surrogate, and I am about 9.5 months postpartum from my second surrogacy journey. If you have been following the news lately, you might have come across a story of a 35-year-old gestational surrogate named McKenna West. McKenna West is currently pregnant as a surrogate with a couple's baby out of California. At her 20-week anatomy scan, McKenna finds out that the baby has like a rare heart condition. The heart condition is treatable. However, it is a rare heart condition. Even though treatable, it does come with a lot of medical challenges. The intended parents have decided that they want McKenna to abort the baby. That is their right. McKenna does not want to abort the baby and has, from what I understand, offered to adopt the baby. Let's be clear, this is McKenna's body. However, this is not McKenna's biological baby. So there is some shades of gray. This is one reason why I preach to women who are interested in becoming gestational surrogates how important it is to have a relationship, a real relationship with the intended parents, because sometimes things can go left. For example, my intended parents had lost a child previously to a rare form of cancer. So they know firsthand that after everything that they have already been through, even though they wanted more kids, being able to take care and go through caring for another sick child just wasn't something that they could do. And that's real. What parent wants that kind of trauma? And I also understand that McKenna, who is carrying the baby in her body, is like, hey, I want to keep this baby. I'll adopt this baby. I'll take care of this baby. However, this is, again, why I stress the relationship that you should have with your intended parents and the contract, because what is in the legal contract? Regardless of what you may think about surrogacy, regardless of how you feel people should build their family, there are rules and regulations, and there are contracts for a reason. I completely understand where McKenna is coming from. I completely understand why she wouldn't want to go through an abortion. She has even went as far as like going to a medical clinic in Houston to see if they could give the baby a surgery right after it's born. And that is great. However, this is not McKenna's biological baby. The situation is really, really heartbreaking. I'm interested to see how this turns out. But again, as I say to everyone, as I say to every woman who reaches out to me, you have to really have the mindset, you have to really have the heart. You have to really have the understanding and compassion around all things surrogacy when you are signing up to be a gestational surrogate. It is so important to have a great attorney, to have a great agency, and to actually understand your contract and a great relationship with your intended parents. Therefore, situations that could happen like this won't be so brutal. Happy Surrogacy Sunday, everyone, and I am truly wishing all the best, whatever that is, in this situation.
Hi, you guys. This woman that you see on your screen is McKenna West. She is an Alaskan surrogate and a single mom of two. And she signed up with Worldwide Surrogacy Specialists in September of 2025 to make ends meet. So in April of 2026, she did a 20-week autonomy scan, and baby Gabriel was diagnosed with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. It's severe but treatable condition. Gabriel's biological parents, AB and CD, told McKenna to get an abortion because it is in the contract. On-demand abortion, but she didn't want to. So she went for it at first. So she went to the abortion clinic in Alaska, but the doctor was like, it's late term, it's high risk. I just rather not touch this. So they tell her, go to Seattle. We scheduled your appointment. You go there. She says no. Right? Because it would be a 2-day long procedure. They will select solution into baby Gabriel for him to have a heart attack, and then they were going to rip him into pieces. And, you know, not thinking about her and what's going to happen to her and her reproductive system in the future. But this is in the contract. So she decided, you know what? I'm going to flee to Texas because I did my research and this is very treatable. Gabriel will survive, so peace out, right? So the biological parents was like, okay, you want to dip on us? Okay, bitch, we got something for you. So now we're going to take you to court. We're going to sue you for $250,000, right? So she So A, B, and C, D went to Alaska and said, hey, we want this woman to kill our child. And then they went to California and said, hey, we want to dictate that this baby is born here in California. So Alaska said, okay, fuck y'all. Well, no. Alaska said, you know what? We don't care about the surrogate. We're just going to let California handle the birthplace. So they're like, you know what? Since you don't want to get an abortion, you're going to give birth in California to our baby. So now we're telling California to give us our parental rights over this woman because she's trying to dictate our child's life. So now you're going to come to California, give birth, but we're not going to give Gabriel the life-changing surgery that he needs. We're just going to put him on a pilot program and hope for the best. Right? So you ain't going to have no parental rights. But she is petitioning the Alaskan court to give her parental rights so she can save baby Gabriel. And she's fighting against A, B, and C, D because they want to abort the baby at first, and now they want parental rights. And if you give it to them, they're just going to kill the baby. And I want to give the baby a chance at life because they can survive this. This is not life threatening. So that's why she fled to Texas to give birth in a hospital, that will uh, do this procedure on her, on Gabriel. So now everything is heavily on California. California is going to decide who have parental rights. California is going to decide where can this surrogate give birth, and who does the medical procedures, and this and this and this and that. But Gabriel is going to be born in 30 days from now because he's going to be born September 3rd. So California courts have to hurry. They have to hurry, make this decision because if they don't, she's going to have the baby with her. So basically, once Gabriel comes out the womb, he goes immediately into surgery. So he could survive the past first week. And then he could have another operation, because I think they said it's 4 operations or something like that. But with this operation, he has a 75% chance to survive to his 5th birthday, or he has a 90% chance to live to his 18th birthday or above, right? But A, B, and C, D were like, nah, we don't want that. Like, we don't want no problems. Like, this child is this. They act like the damn child is disfigured or some shit. Have a cleft lip, a missing eye, so got no ear. Like the baby is physically fine. It's just the heart that's a little messed up. So she was like, you know what? I'll give up my parental rights if I can have it in writing that A, B, C, D. Oh God, will give this baby this life saving surgery. They said, no way, we're not doing that. We didn't want the child in the first place. We don't care if the baby died or you died while getting the abortion. We just don't want the child, period. So now McKenna was like, I'm not getting a AMNIOCENTESIS. I don't know how to say that word because she feared of not getting that payment. But baby, if you fled and the parents said, we don't want the baby, I don't think they're still paying you, honey. Okay. But they need this prenatal test for Gabriel to be eligible for the surgery. Without that, they cannot determine if he needs surgery or not. Oh, God. Okay. So basically, they were like, okay, well, we're going to try the Alaskan courts again. So ABCD went back to Alaska because California said, baby, we're not doing the surrogate contract. You need to go to Alaska. Alaska has governing over that because that contract was signed in Alaska. Bye bye. Okay. So I just want to say I have my last child that I just gave birth to has a heart condition. I don't know if it is this because they really didn't tell me the name when they found it in the womb or whatever. And he goes to his appointments and they said that he has like a gap where the blood just runs through it, from the right to the left, but it just pours out. It doesn't really stay in the heart. But that gap in his heart is closing, okay? And it's getting smaller and smaller to where when the blood through the ventricle will pump, it will stay in the heart instead of squirt out. Now, where I feel for McKenna is when they told me at my 20 week that he has a hole in his heart, but it's not severe. They told me that I could go on with the pregnancy or I can get an abortion. And abortion was out of the question because I'm just like, if you guys say he has a hole in his heart, it's not severe, it's not life threatening, why get the abortion? It doesn't make sense. And so now, what the heart specialist is telling me is that it can take a year, 5 years, or maybe a lifetime for that little heart to close up in his chest. I mean, in his heart. But it's not life threatening. He can live a normal life. You guys see what I'm saying? So I feel where McKenna is going with this and where it could be life saving. My baby, the doctor said that my child could have surgery to close up the little hole if it's taking too long, but my child does not need invasive surgery like Gabriel does to close his heart, the hole in his heart. But you know what? If it's treatable, if he can live the rest of his life, why not go for it? I think, and I feel for the parents, nobody wants a child who has a problem, right? Nobody wants that. But who decides to have that they want their child to come up with something or not? We can't decide that because problems happen as the children get older. And those problems can appear that did not appear in gestational. So if they decide, okay, this baby has a heart condition, then the next baby has something wrong with it. They're going to get rid of that too, and then they're going to keep going and keep going until the fifth child doesn't have anything wrong with it. This is very complicated. Just to avoid all this confusion, I understand that it is high risk. She may be an older woman, and this could mess her up for life because abortions do psychological harm to women, and it can mess up their reproductive system, their uterus. But I think she just should have went with it. But who knows at the end of the day? And I don't think you should break the contract, but hell, what do I know? I'm just a talking head.
This might be one of the most disturbing surrogacy cases you'll ever hear about. This is McKenna, a surrogate mother from Alaska. Right now, she is carrying a baby boy named Gabriel, and he was just diagnosed with a serious but treatable heart condition. Because of this diagnosis, the couple that produced baby Gabriel have decided they don't want him anymore, so they demanded that McKenna undergo a late-term abortion, and like any sane person, she refused. Instead, she offered to raise baby Gabriel herself or put him up for adoption to spare his life. Rather than accept that and protect baby Gabriel, the couple has allegedly threatened to sue McKenna for over $250,000 for violating the surrogacy agreement. McKenna has fled to Texas to give baby Gabriel the best chance at life and deliver him at one of the nation's leading hospitals for baby Gabriel's heart condition. But the couple is taking her to court. They are trying to force her to return to California so they can control the medical care that baby Gabriel receives. Think about what this means. The same couple that sought to end baby Gabriel's life are now trying to claim parental rights to control his birth and medical care. This is the problem with surrogacy. It turns children into consumer products that can be bought, sold, and destroyed on demand. Please pray for McKenna and baby Gabriel.
McKenna West is 35 weeks pregnant with a baby who is not biologically related to her at all. She is a surrogate mother, and her story it's a nightmare. Like, it's only getting more nightmarish. McKenna successfully became pregnant via IVF with a couple from California's baby who is now named Gabriel. Everything was super smooth sailing. They were very, very excited until the 20-week anatomy scan. This anatomy scan showed that Gabriel had a heart condition that is very serious, but it is treatable. And pretty much immediately, the mother of Gabriel, so not McKenna, but the biologically related mother, wanted McKenna to get an abortion. To make a very long story short, McKenna did not want to get the abortion. She had done research about this and was finding that it was treatable, and there were children and there were adults who had it, and they ended up being totally fine, and she didn't want to kill the baby. The problem is McKenna could be sued if she didn't get the abortion. She could not afford being sued. So she called her doctor to get a referral for a late abortion. She got one scheduled for 2 weeks out. Again, fast forwarding through some details for brevity, McKenna at this point was just trying to figure out how to avoid the abortion, but also how to avoid being sued and going bankrupt. By the grace of God, she ended up getting into contact with this incredible, wonderful woman named Lila Rose, who McKenna had remembered watching some videos of. And Lila Rose is a staunch pro-life activist. And McKenna knew, if I can talk to her, she will help me save this baby, because that's what pro-lifers do. But it sounds like within 24 to 48 hours, McKenna was connected with world-class lawyers and told, we will do what you need to help save your baby's life. At the beginning of this video, I said that it is only getting more nightmarish, and that is still definitely the case. So McKenna didn't show up to her abortion appointment, and then she fled to the state of Texas, because in Texas, there are doctors who specialize in this heart condition that Gabriel has. The first surgery that they offer has a 100% success rate so far. The chances for Gabriel to live are not anywhere near grim. However, the surgery is necessary. Without surgery right after being born, he will die within days or weeks. McKenna wants him to receive the surgery. She's trying to convince the parents to give their own son a life-saving surgery, basically. They went from, first of all, requesting that he be put to death. Second, threatening to put the surrogate woman, McKenna, into financial ruin because she didn't want to put him to death. How could a parent do such a thing? It's a horrific story.
Y'all, there's this debate going on right now, and it's honestly pissing me off, because it's just like, a lot of you people wouldn't pass the psychological exam it takes to be a surrogate. Because, I don't know if you guys have seen this lady, she's, 20 weeks and some change pregnant. She's however far along that she is with, the intended parent's baby. And I guess the baby was diagnosed with like a serious heart defect, that the baby would need a couple of surgeries, 3 to 4, I don't know, however many surgeries in order to live a healthy, happy life. The parents said, no, thank you. Can you terminate for me? She said no, and she fucking fled to Texas, because she know Texas don't do abortions, especially not that far along, but they don't do abortions, period. Everybody is talking about my body, my choice, my body, or her body, her choice. And I'm like, no, baby, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. All she's doing is just prolonging the inevitable, because when she leaves, that they know that it's a surrogate pregnancy already. Like, I know she fled to Texas, so they might not know, and they might let her go home with the baby, but I don't really know how that works. But I'm pretty sure in all of the surrogate ladies' contracts, It doesn't matter the circumstance. If they go MIA on you, disappear, you cannot go home with that baby. And you don't need to correct me because that's the fucking God honest truth. You cannot go home with that baby. In your contract, it also says, it clearly states, any point in pregnancy, if they ask you to terminate, what do you have to do? Not all at once. Terminate. Exactly. So it's just like, people are like, oh, it's just so morally wrong. It's this and it's that. And I don't understand. I didn't know that murder was in the contract. Well, honestly, it is. If that's how you feel, it is. It's in the contract. Absolutely. Because remember, all you're doing is being a vessel for that baby. All you're doing is carrying that baby because they can't. For whatever the reasons is, they can't carry it. So you don't get to make choices for someone else's child. You're carrying the baby, absolutely, yes. But you don't get to make any medical decisions like that. Because I know, in my contract, in the event that, like, it was like some life-threatening shit on my end, I can make the decision, okay? But that's not her case. The baby isn't gonna have a good, basically, the baby may or may not have a good quality of life. And remember, they paid all this money just to get up to the point where you got pregnant. Like, there was a whole lot of steps before you even came along. They have the right, unfortunately. And if you don't like that, baby, you can always go sell some ass. I ain't gonna lie. A lot of people are surrogates just thinking, oh, it's going to be some quick cash. It's going to be easy, smooth sailing. No, every pregnancy is not easy. A lot of pregnancies are not healthy. They might pass the initial test, test that they make us do, like the NIPT and the NST or whatever. But further along, things can always appear. Don't ever get too comfortable with the idea of being pregnant, and don't ever just fix yourself to be too comfortable just because you're carrying a child, because it's not your baby. It's not your child, baby. I'm sorry, it's just not. People are so uneducated. Like, I get it, everybody has their beliefs, everybody has whatever the fuck they think, but remember, you don't have to be a surrogate. This whole stroll is always available if you need some quick cash. I'm just saying. I hate arguing with people about it, because it's like, you're looking at this shit from your standpoint. Like, bitches is looking at this shit from the standpoint of, oh, you got pregnant by a random nigga. He told you to kill it and you decided to keep it. Bitch, that's your business. Honestly, do whatever the fuck you feel like. But this is not that. This isn't a random man on the street. This is contracts. This is medications. This is psychological, mental evaluations and all type of shit that you had to go through to even get to the point of being pregnant. So clearly somebody got misjudged along the way, but that's okay. Things happen. But you can't make any decisions for a child that's not yours. And they're like, oh, because I guess the intended parents, they said they don't want the baby. She's like, okay, I'll take the baby. They told her no. You want to know why? Because they can tell you that. They can tell you that you legally cannot keep the baby. This is why kids end up dead and shit, because it's just you need to listen. Regardless of the situation, you will not, cannot, will not be parenting that child. It's very rare, and in this situation, baby, it definitely won't be the case for her. It just won't be her case, because you fled. You fled the state that you were supposed to stay in. Mind you, in your contract, you were supposed to stay in whatever state you started the contract in. Fuck. And she fled to Texas. Because they don't play about babies. Like, every baby deserves to live and all this good stuff like that. And I'm not saying that they don't. But just remember, you can make whatever decision you feel like when it's your child. But when it's not your child, you don't have the right to make any fucking decisions, unfortunately. Like I said, unless your life is on the line, then you can do whatever the fuck you want. Nobody can sue you or anything like that. It's in the contract to protect you for a reason. But there's also things in place to protect them. Right? Okay. So I don't get it. People are like, oh, we'll just let her keep the baby. Bitch, that's not how that works. You know how much money they spent up until this point to get that baby? Nobody's just about to let that go. Keep in mind, people have to freeze embryos, have to store them, have to pay egg donors if they had to do that, sperm donors if they have to do that. They're spending a lot of money to get the baby that they want. Okay? The baby that they want. Most babies are PGT tested before they even go in you, but that doesn't test for everything. Okay, yes, the baby might not have one eye, one lung. That's cool. But other things can appear later on. So that's why it's in the contract to state that at any point, not just the first trimester, not just when you think it's ethical and whatever you feel like is like a decent point in time to get a miscarriage or an abortion. Like, people are like, do you even know how hard it is to get an abortion? Well, bitch, don't be a surrogate. The fuck, stick to having that broke ass nigga's children. You call it a fucking day. But the entitlement is, I'm just like, you bitches need to never. A lot of you females just need to never have a child. And people always ask, like, oh, how do you feel about just giving the baby away that you carried? They're like, isn't it your baby? I'm like, bitch, no, this ain't no fucking adoption. This is not what's going on. This isn't that. Like, this is not what's currently happening right now. That's not what's going on. So if you can't detach, like completely detach, find you another line of work. Okay?
Yo, what up, gang? So, has this one come across your timeline yet? Here we have a woman by the name of McKenna. She's from Alaska. And right now she's currently under fire for refusing to have an abortion. I shit you not. For refusing to have an abortion. Now let me give you a little bit of details surrounding this story. So McKenna is a surrogate mother. And she was under contract for agreeing to have someone else's child and be that surrogate mother. But in the contract is a stipulation that states if the baby comes out with any, deformities or whatever, or complications, that she would immediately have an abortion and abort the child. So originally, I guess McKenna agreed to this stipulation, but later on decided against it. So she decided she wanted to keep this child and she would be responsible for the child. She would be the child's mother. So the parents, the original parents, decided to sue McKenna for $250,000, $250,000, for breach of contract and basically saying that she's misrepresenting facts. So McKenna fled to Texas in order to have this baby and to have the life-saving treatment and surgery that the baby desperately needs. So in conclusion, McKenna is refusing to have this abortion due to the baby possibly being able to be saved with life-saving surgery. The baby has a heart condition, but is potentially treatable. And she wants to take care of this baby. She does not want to abort the baby. So it's got a lot of people basically in an uproar about this, with some people saying, no, she should absolutely honor the contract. She was under contract. She should not breach the contract. She has no right to the child. With other people saying, well, no, she shouldn't have to have an abortion if she doesn't want to and she plans on taking care of the child. If the child can't be saved, why would you abort? Now, I guess you'd have to weigh what's more important to you, honoring a contract or preserving the life of a potential child. I have my opinion. I'd absolutely love to hear yours, so leave it in the comment section and let me know what you guys think.